Joining me today in Nashville, Tennessee, my guest is David Ledge, also known as Ledge. Welcome to May I Have Your Attention?
It's good to be here. Thanks, Justin.
So I want to give listeners a quick background. Ledge is a co-founder and managing partner at Ad10, where their team provides lead to close sales execution for tech-enabled B2B services, companies ready to leap from 6 to 7 digits of revenue. He's a 13-time founder with over $40 million of software and service sales in the last decade. He's been a sales leader since 2007 and has taken multiple companies from bootstrapped to millions in revenue. So Ledge, maybe to kick things off, how would you explain to someone if you ran into them on the street what you do at Ad10?
Yeah, I was just listening to you say that. It's a mouthful, right? And it's interesting, right? The conventional wisdom about your elevator pitch should be like fewer words and sort of make it really easy and all those things. And I always did that. And then I sort of realized that niching to an extreme level is critically important. And, we try to explain what we do in a simple way, but less important than being simple is appealing exactly to the person that we want to deal with, right? And so we are looking for founders of B2B services companies. Typically, I say tech enabled because that is sort of, you run your business on SaaS, you're familiar with remote work even before COVID, sort of all that stuff. And what we do is we look for founders who have these, B2B services companies. Maybe that's marketing or some kind of niche service, professional service, things like that. And I have found in my journey that those people can bootstrap and take their companies kind of to like that 500,000 kind of mark where they reach this point where they say, do I want to grow up and run sales for this company? Or do I want to grow up and run the company and be a CEO? And there's no right or wrong answer there. There's very successful CEOs who are on the sales side and they know I got to hire an operator. On the other side, if you want to be an operator, then you got to hire someone to take over and grow and run sales. The available options to do that would be, well, let me hire a sort of a young and hungry SDR, straight out of college, and we'll throw them on the phone, or I'll hire a lead gen service, or I'll do this or do that, or VP of sales. Let's spend lots of money on that. And I found that none of those were really a perfect answer for that type of company at that point. You ought to do a lot of those things when you're up in the middle millions type of range. So who was going to help from that 6 digit to 7 digit? How do I take a company that I got off the ground, got to about 500,000, I'm feeling good, but the next 10x is a totally different business. And so those are the people we work with. If you are a founder and you don't want to sit in that seat anymore, I'm done with sales, I never set out to do sales, I want to do the thing, I want to run a company, I want to grow my staff, it's probably not affordable for you right there to hire a sales leader unless they're, a partner kind of in your company and working for equity. And that's a difficult thing to bring people onto. There's a lot of trust involved in partnerships. So we slide right in there, and that's what we do. We're going to come in and we will be your white label closers as a service, your whole sales and revenue, department, division, call it what you want, revenue operations, everything from the point at which you get a lead into that business, they want to do a call with somebody, we will take and do those calls. It'll look just like you. It'll be part of your company. We run it all the way through the deal pipeline, all the follow-ups, all the paperwork, all the things that you need to do to turn that into a customer and then hand it off to your customer success and ops. And that's a revenue function. And that's sort of what we build. And we're really good at scaling businesses that way.
So a couple questions come out of this for me. One of them is, I like what you were saying about how, it seems like as an entrepreneur, you've seen the power of niching down on a really narrow thing to focus on. How have you, as you've grown your company, as you've grown multiple companies, how have you known when to stay myopically focused on one type of customer versus as you're building a company, there's other opportunities. And so there's always the temptation to widen the aperture or to chase more or to do more. I'm just kind of curious, how have you built that discernment of when to stay myopically focused versus when to broaden and trying to expand more?
Yeah, look, we're founders, right? We all have sort of the squirrel, sort of, hypothetical ADD or whatever it is. We love big new. I love big new ideas. I mean, I'd rather go do something new every day. So, I mean, how did I grow that muscle? By doing it poorly, lots of times, right? And eventually you learn that you need to do this. There's always going to be that next thing. And I think when one of my guests on our podcast, told me this, that the way, I think I asked the same question, and that it really comes down to having a mission, sort of vision of the company and a set of values that will help you say, is this or is this not directly driving myself and my clients toward that vision? So for us, we said, well, we weren't sure about mission driven, but we kind of had this passion. We're going to say that, like, we don't have a vision statement, but here's the passion of the company. And our passion that we would get behind and measure everything by was, any founder that works with us will never have to worry about cash flow again. So if we can build a system like that, because I've been that founder where I had to call, friends, family, and fools for a loan for next Friday's payroll. And that was painful. And I didn't like that very much. And so said, if we can direct everything we do to that passion and measure the opportunities, so when something walks in the door, a shiny new opportunity exists, can I say, by doing this thing, at least in this business, by doing this thing, can I make sure that the founder, whoever I'm talking to, never has to worry about cash flow again? So we have like a tight binding around the fences of, or the boundaries of that passion. And some stuff is really compelling. You would chase projects or think about different types of things, and it just doesn't fit. Likewise, it should tell you who not to do business with. Maybe if they are your client, we've had to, I don't want to say we fire people, but we've, released some clients who we said, we're not achieving the thing because, in some cases you won't listen to us. In other cases, you have not provided a lead volume necessary to do this. It's unethical for us to take your money anymore. And so it sort of cuts both ways on that. You do the best thing that you can to make sure that you're delivering, at least in our case, an extreme level of value to the clients that stick around. And I think in previous businesses, maybe I did not focus, and I just chased the revenue. And I try to advise people not to do that. Don't just chase the next shiny revenue thing. Let's try to really grow and scale the thing that you have. And if you find another opportunity, put it in the idea notebook and, kind of noodle on it and build this current business in a way that it can run itself. So you have the time, space, capital, and energy to go and, do the other thing, but do it as a separate business.
I like that. I really like, instead of values, having that passion statement that filters what you focus on. And I also really like that thought of freeing up your own time so you can chase the shiny object, but not at the detriment of the company, and have the company, off-roading with you. Another thing I wanted to dovetail off of is, you talked about how you focus on service businesses. And I remember when you and I first spoke months ago, it's something I appreciated that you said about how everyone is so tech crazed, and you think that people are overlooking these service businesses. Why is that? Why are these businesses so appealing to you?
It might be like sell and do what you like to do, right? So for me, I'm not sure that I'm making uniformly brilliant business decisions that would apply to everyone. It's a space that I know, I grew up in. I do think that there's really nothing wrong with a business. We might look at a service business and say, hey, 30 to 50% gross margin when done well scales up really nicely, and a bunch of that money falls to the bottom line. Is that the same as a 90% gross margin at mega billion scale for a SaaS company? No, but we're also not seeking, and we can bootstrap. A service business can be bootstrapped. I see people get really good at doing a service business and then say, but we've got to productize, we have to turn this into a tech business. We have to turn this into MRR. And you're right. I just don't think that very many times those founders are amazing at doing the 180-degree turn and turning it into a product company. So it's just a very different thing. So, keep doing what you're good at, and don't miss those opportunities to put a lot of money down on the bottom line. I mean, ultimately, like, you have to have a profitable enterprise. So we are, at least, sort of in the US tech scene, and just obsessed with this idea that we've got to develop hands-off, self-serve SaaS tools that will mint money. And that's great, but you only hear about the good ones. How many of them die on the vine because a technical founder read too much TechCrunch and thought that, well, if I build it, they will come. So all business is difficult. I just think that at the end of the day, there will always be many founders who are, human businesses. There's always humans behind all the businesses, and all of those businesses need to consume services, one way or another, whether or not they sell technology. So that seems like a pretty ripe place to be. It's sort of like selling haircuts. You're pretty good unless your clients all look like me. So.
Well, I also, one thing I appreciate about it in your answer is the role of personal preference in niching down. And, you started by saying it's a part of business that you like and that and I feel like sometimes I can get into, apologies to our listeners, I've got major construction spontaneously happening outside my window downtown.
Isn't that always the way? Yeah, I don't. My long guy only comes when I'm recording.
Yeah, the dog only. Yeah, it's
right.
But it's just kind of nice and refreshing to say, look, there's so much opportunity in the business world. You can have your personal preference play a role in what you go after, because that's one of the beauties also of niching down, is you can really go after something that appeals to you and makes business sense.
I don't know. For us, it's just like, we can make people millions of dollars. That's just cool. Cool. Go take your money and spend it, do whatever you want and start a SaaS company. That's great. Maybe someday I will, I haven't happened upon the greatest, idea that would scale. But I also think that if you're honest with yourself about lean startup and the way that we're ostensibly all taught to do it and don't actually do it, is that you really need to manually test and sort of battle out a real model before you try to SaaSify and scale the hell out of a technology. Well, how do you do that? You provide a service, you do it manually. It's ugly and slow, and it doesn't scale. And tiny little pieces will expose themselves that you go, that's the thing that I could turn into a SaaS product, but not the whole thing. I just want people to be careful and not go bonkers trying to chase insane money when you can still make like millions of dollars. You don't have to be the next unicorn unless that's what gets you going. And, God bless. I hope you have lots of money.
Yeah, no, I am so in line with what you're saying. And it's like, there's so many great businesses that don't have to, I like what you're saying, because you do have to start in a way that's not scalable. Although scalability is the goal, you have to start with things that are inherently not scalable, and you have to prove them out. And I'm just thinking, in my own path, when I raised money, I didn't have to. I had the money to build crazy shit that no one wanted. It was such a mistake.
Yeah, and you wonder, like, why is money free like that, right? Yep. Like, every day of the week you read these stories like, such and such raises 50 million to take on the blah 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 to do something or another, and you kind of go like, why? Why are there 300 people doing that in a building? I just don't think that that's real. So.
No, I agree. What about when we talked previously, you had shared with me a thought about how sales should be informing marketing. And I'm just kind of curious if you could expand on that for our audience.
Yes. Yeah. I'm really passionate about this thing. So I think, the trope, like you're a marketer, you've been around the sales thing. It's just like sales and marketing don't get along. I mean, how many companies have you been to where sales doesn't communicate with marketing, and salespeople hate marketing, and marketing people hate sales, and there's just this fundamental conflict? And yet let's say we're going to stick with, I know like people maybe don't like the funnel anymore, and now we're going flywheel or, whatever. But at any case, you got top of the funnel, which is largely a marketing activity. You got bottom of the funnel, which is largely a sales activity. Right there in the middle is that place that we imagine this demarcation where, the lead gets tossed over and they go, good luck. And then, that's where it's a marketing qualified lead, and sales says this is garbage. It's not a sales qualified lead. And it's as if there's a fence, and like, well, just not our problem anymore. We got your leads, peace out. And on the other side, the marketing folks going like, how come you salespeople don't use any of this like material we spent 200 years making, and like, this is expensive and we have to make branding and we have to make, messaging, and this is important stuff. All of whom were right. And I started to look at that and say, wait, again, if we're going to, sort of worship at the church of lean startup, right? What are you supposed to do there? You're supposed to do customer discovery. Now, most people, sort of do a business and they don't actually do the customer discovery and interview dozens and dozens and dozens of potential customers, come up with, actual real data. So let's say we step into a business and, we already didn't do that. Well, what's the best way to do customer discovery? It essentially is a sales call, because it's a one-to-one call with a person that potentially may or may not be interested in some version of the thing that you do, or the way you described it, at least got them on the phone. So now we can ask a whole bunch of questions during that sales process. And every salesperson, at least in a service sector, and I think in general, it wants to do that discovery-based selling. Like, tell me your stories, hopes, dreams. What do you wish this would do for you? What's the difference between now and then, so I can, sell the thing we do. Well, all of that information just gets lost. Nobody does anything with it. So you have all those effectively customer discovery interviews. And I started looking at that and saying, that's all the data you could ever need, except it's a huge pain in the ass to extract it. I think this is why nobody does this really. There are, sort of intelligence platforms, Gong and different things like that will consume your calls and give you, coaching information and different things of that nature for your sales reps. But we looked at the calls and said, look, we record every call here. If you go through that, and it unfortunately is human, there's no real AI that can do this yet. And you write down literally every sentence from the prospect that ended with a question mark. You do that for 20, 30, 40, 50 calls. You have every question that could ever possibly be asked, and you condense that into a data set. I call those content prompts. And I say, here, marketing, sales informed right now. These are the things that people want to know. Will you please create content and marketing and messaging that addresses these things? Because if you do that, by the time somebody gets to the bottom of the funnel, they will in fact have been answered to almost every possible objection through one interaction, engagement, or another. That's a lot better person to get on the phone. They will self-select out if they just simply don't agree with you. And by the time they get to a call, we don't have to spend a half an hour trying to convince them that they're in the right place. They've already satiated that need to feel secure in their purchase decision. Now we're just working out details and having a good conversation. So if you do that on a repeated basis, that's the manner that you can work together. I don't disagree that there ought to be, centralized marketing materials. I just question what those materials are about. And I think that's where sales enablement materials came from, because salespeople are being like, this marketing doesn't, like, that's great that you have an 18-page white paper about why people should do this, but it doesn't answer anything that I need them to know, like at this, sort of point level on a one-to-one basis. Well, here are the content prompts, produce a bunch of stuff that answers these questions in 10 different ways. And we will drive up the close ratio, because people will feel understood when they pass through the funnel. So that's the theory, and that works. That is not a thing you can just plug into, though. It's just a tremendous amount of work. So that's one step that we do every time we enter a client. So.
That's so great. I read this book forever ago called "They Ask You Answer," "They Ask You Listen," or "They Ask You Answer," and it was similar. It's kind of like anytime you have a question that needs to drive your marketing content, and it leads me to another question I wanted to ask, which is, you've helped so many businesses make it to the next level. And I'm curious, obviously, there's a whole business you've built around this, but kind of common mistakes that you see founders making when it comes to sales. And it seems like one of them that you've just articulated is keeping track of these questions and letting that drive marketing. But I'm wondering, is there any other trends that you see stand out that you're like, why do people make these mistakes?
Yeah, there's a really interesting thing. One of the reasons I love, at least again, in services business, this does not apply to your SaaS business. There's other metrics, but in a services business, B2B, you're going to find right around that 500,000 revenue point on average. Could flex up and down. You're going to find that the things you were doing to get there are no longer going to help you scale and grow revenue. And the reason is up till that point, you were able to do this thing. And I know everybody who's being honest that runs a sales or services business or has bought from one has seen this abject lie. We customize every proposal. Every engagement is different. We don't do a cookie cutter approach, blah, 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 on and on and on. That's great. And that will only get you to a certain point as a business provider. So as a service provider, right? At that point, you need to then analyze all the things that you have been doing that you do on a regular basis. You got to figure out the 80%. Like we do pretty much the same thing, even though we call it a custom proposal. That's cool. Those 80% things ought to be divided out into some kind of package scenario. I love the 3 package vibe. You see this, and this is straight out of like the SaaS playbook, right? You got your good, better, best, recommended right there in the middle. Everybody's seen a pricing page that looks like that. Make your service into that thing. And then you got another 10% of stuff that you can go, awesome. Sometimes people want this stuff. It's a little bit more money. It doesn't fit exactly into a package, but let's make that an add-on. So now we have a menu that has, here's most of the stuff. Here's all your main courses. Here's how we deliver it. You can also buy a side item if you want to, right? Pretty normal disposition there. Well, I'll just add this and take off the pickles. No problem. Okay, we can do that. So there's your next 10%. The final 10% is that weird stuff that people walk in the door and they say, I want you to do this thing. I want all that other stuff, but I also want you to do this weird thing that you have never done before. And that's great. That's optionality for your business. You can bring that back and you can say, do we want to develop this really weird thing that is not in the other 90%, but we can charge a lot of money for it? Okay. And the answer is, does it fit into that passion statement? You know, if we can plausibly say this is a place we might want to advance our business, charge that customer for a lot of money, 3 times, 4 or 5, 6 times as much as it should be, because they actually want it, and build it out in a way that you can then say, I now have either a new add-on or I have a new component that I'm going to go back and upsell to all my other customers and increase my package capability. So by actually doing the same thing over and over again, there are myriad benefits to the business, because now I can say, let's say you're the customer success team, right? You're the operations delivery team. You're the finance team. Sales can call down the hallway or a Zoom call or a Slack, and they can say, I just sold package B with add-on 2. Everybody business wide now knows how much to charge for that, exactly what to deliver, exactly what formula and recipe to run. There's none of this back and forth. Well, what do you mean by this? And hey, you wrote that scope of work differently. And what about this? And what about that? And all that. Oh, hey, that got lost in the handoff call. That's why you don't do that anymore, because you can't scale it. So that huge problem happens when people just do this. I write a custom proposal for everybody. It peters out. That's why your revenue has stagnated. You can't do that anymore.
When I love this thought of almost like productizing the pricing, do you have strong feelings, having worked with so many companies, about publicly displaying pricing versus being opaque and making them come to you for it?
It depends on the business. Yeah. If you're in a space with a boatload of competitors and you're trying to position as a more premium offering for that, and a lot of services business really are more boutique like that, if you're going to try to make them a little more profitable, I tend not to put the pricing out there. Although if you were to go to our website, you can clearly see, our pricing. So I think it's really the question of how many businesses ostensibly do the same thing as you. Because if you're just going to give that away, you're kind of like the gas stations, sort of across the street from each other. Like, you can't have a big delta because you didn't get a chance to sell them before they kind of priced you out. However, if you're niche enough, you do a thing, you get a lot of referrals, we're okay putting our pricing out there because it's just what it costs. And we know we make people millions of dollars. So if you don't want to pay that, that's okay. You can call the random lead setting SDR, something as a service, whatever other thing you want. There's a million different alternatives to what we do. They're not necessarily direct competitors. So the answer is it depends, but most times we don't put it out there because we're trying to premium position the client. So
I love it. Just two last questions. First one is just where can people find you? Where can they find out more? How can they get in touch with you?
I am David Ledgerwood on LinkedIn. That is the place I post tons and tons of videos and content. I co-host a podcast called Leaders of B2B, and we would welcome you to listen to that. And our website is add10.co, and it's ADD numeral 1 ZERO.co. We're coming for you, whoever has that .com. I just want to let you know right now, but so far they have not answered my emails. So
last question I always like to keep open-ended, which is you've given so much value here. We've covered a lot of ground. What have we not covered that you want people to know about sales, about marketing, or entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I'll go to the startup founders. I think if you're bootstrapping and you're not certain of a technical idea, like, it's a really good place to just think about a service, pull it out of your things that you can do, qualities you can provide somebody while you figure it out. I was a side hustler, so I had my day job and, started my startups, kind of at my corporate desk and, did that whole thing. And I think, sort of buffer your cash flow as a startup founder, just to give yourself as many reps and as much runway, as you can, because you're invariably wrong. The problem is you don't know which wrong you are. And, it costs a lot of money to be wrong. And particularly I see people a lot of times, kind of bet the farm, bet the family on, a half-baked thing, like, just, you're good at a thing, or you think there's an idea and we're going to, mortgage our house and invest all this money in it. And I would like people to not get wrapped up in the hustle insanity. Remember that for every amazing story you hear, there's like 1,000 stories that are, not amazing. And the reason that, quote, nobody is doing this, it could be that you're brilliant. Maybe. It could also be that everybody who tried that is out of business and broke now, and you can't even find a website about it. So just be careful with the lies that you can convince yourself of, particularly if you're a sales type like me, because I can spin the narrative in any way that makes my brain happy enough to make me go do that thing. And to that, I say surround yourself with people who have excellent discernment of different types. So I can smell how to make money from stuff. I don't have the, sort of focused ability to, check myself when I get excited. So I got a business partner who is, very grounded and very operationally based. So I know that we won't get in trouble when I go have a bunch of conversations on podcasts, because stuff will get filtered, when it comes in the door. So I guess those would be my biggest tips. That I wish you could make up experience, and just I'm not sure that you can. So earn your loss of hair and your gray beard like me. So.
I love both of those points. I think that one of the reasons I like to see entrepreneurs bootstrapping is they have to be so judicious with every dollar. And I really like what you're saying. It's like, you don't really know where it's going to fail, and like making sure you've got dry powder, because things, I always just say that, it always takes 10 times longer and 10 times more money than you ever thought it would. And I see entrepreneurs throwing money, at the optimal straight line path to success, not realizing the zigzag that's going to get them there, and they run out of money before they can do it. And I also really appreciate hearing about you and your co-founder and how you balance each other. I definitely relate to you of kind of the very easy to get excited. And it's great that you found that person to anchor you and to kind of minimize the oscillation so that the team is not getting whiplash as sometimes
Right.
my team does. They get fired up. So David, thank you so much for your time today. And at the show notes for this episode, we'll have links to everything we discuss, as well as where to find Ledge on LinkedIn, where to find leaders of B2B, and also add10.co. Thanks so much, Ledge.
Thank you.